Hi guys. Happy Tuesday. I usually don't go live on Tuesdays. I usually go live on Sundays, but I had some family drama and that just completely threw my day off. But we're good now. So yeah, I was like, you know what? Let me go live on Tuesday. So here I am, even though I'm always terrified. And I don't know if that will ever go away, probably because I have an anxiety disorder. But for whatever reason, I just have these. It's God. It's really just God. I'm just being obedient. That's why I'm like, why do I keep doing this when it low key like makes me anxious? But enough about me. Today we're going to talk about how to heal from deep trauma. I feel like a lot of people are under the impression there are certain things you can never heal from, and that is false. Now, don't get me wrong. Healing is challenging, especially depending on what you need to heal from. But even though it's challenging, it is possible. I've healed from things that I never thought I'd be able to heal from. And that's how I know it's possible. So, another thing that I want to say, healing is not a lifelong process. You hear people say that a lot. Healing is a lifelong process. No, it's not. Evolving is a lifelong process. Now, don't get me wrong. There is going to come new trauma in your life that you're going to have to heal from. Let's say somebody close to you dies. That's a new trauma that you'll have to heal from. Or let's say you get in a crazy car accident and you end up paralyzed, God forbid, or just something tragic happens. That's going to be a new trauma that you have to heal from. But healing from a specific thing, whether it's something that happened in your childhood or even something that happened recently, healing from a specific thing is not a lifelong process unless you make it. And I used to believe in that saying too, until, like I said, I've healed from things I never thought I could heal from. And if you see me looking down, I'm looking down at my notes. So I don't lose track of what the Lord wants me to say. I said the Lord want me to say. I meant the Lord wants me to say. Um. Oh, another thing, another misconception that a lot of people have, and another saying that I do not agree with. When people say time heals all wounds. No, it doesn't. Time, if anything, time just pushes the trauma to the back of your mind, but it's still in your subconscious because you haven't addressed it. You haven't actually did the work. Let's say something happened to you when you were 10. Let's say when you were 10, something super tragic happened to you. And you never addressed it. You never faced it. You never healed from it. You just let it happen and moved on with your life. Just because 20 years has passed, 30 years has passed, that doesn't mean you've healed from it. If you've literally done no work, 9 times out of 10, you're not healed from it. And I guarantee you, it is affecting you whether you realize it or not. There are things, grown adults, and I say this all the time jokingly, but I'm also being serious. Adults are just big ass kids. Big ass kids that pay bills. Cause here's the thing. Let's say you're 40, you're 40 years old, you're a grown adult, and you're having certain issues with dating. You're still not married. Not because you don't want to be, but because the relationships you get in never work out. And it could be for any reason. It could be that you just keep picking the wrong people, or it could be that you're toxic and you have some traits that you need to work on. But what you don't realize is 9 times out of 10, that is somehow connected to your childhood or some type of unresolved trauma that you have. And I know because I literally lived it. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I've talked about it a million times. And, I don't want to be like, oh, let me tell you my sob story. But when I was 3, I was molested by my dad. And that, wait, what was I saying? Darn, I literally lost my train of thought right when it was about to get good. What was I saying, guys? Oh my God. Thank you, Jesus. Yeah, so I was molested by my dad when I was 3. And even fast forward, that's a really long story. I could probably write a movie. I could probably write a movie about that whole story because it's insane. But I'm not going to get into it right now because it's really not about that specific thing. I'm just using it as an example. But when I was 3, I was molested by my dad. And even fast forward to when I was 18, I was living with him and his girlfriend. And he was doing a lot of perverted things. I'm not going to get into the stuff he was doing, but pretty much when I was 3 and when I was molested as a child, I didn't remember who molested me because you're only 3. A 3-year-old can't really articulate those type of things. And on top of that, it's like, who knows? He probably manipulated me, and it's very easy to manipulate a toddler. But anyways, to this day, I still don't remember the night I was molested. I don't like it, it's like God completely wiped it from my memory. And I learned in psychology when I was in college. I learned in my psychology class. Sometimes you can have trauma that's so bad, your subconscious blocks it out. So you can't even remember. And a part of me is happy that I don't remember, but at the same time, I wish I remember so I knew exactly what happened. But, anyways, so it's a long story, but like long story short, I didn't realize he was the one that molested me until I was 18 and I was living with him and his girlfriend. And he was doing all these perverted things and saying certain things. And I was just in my mind like, yo, am I tripping or is this nigga a pervert? And it's crazy because when I was a kid, I always secretly asked myself, Kyla, are you sure your dad wasn't the one who molested you? I would always secretly ask myself that, but I never told anybody. I never talked to anybody about it. Because long story short, he I don't want to get into the story, not because like, oh, it's so hard for me to talk about, but just because I don't want this video to be super long. And I feel like I've told this story before, but long story short, he tried to put it on his friend to say, nah, my friends were the one who molested her, da, da, da. But his friends were like, he was the only one that was alone with her. He was the only one that was alone with her that night. So yeah, but my mom, like, we never had proof. Like I don't know what happened. I was a kid and my parents were teenage parents. So they had me when they were 15. So he was 18 when he molested me. So yeah, they were super young. But my mom suspected that he was the one molesting me. She suspected it was him, but she didn't have proof. So she told me like I kept him away for like 6 years. He couldn't see you for like 6 years after that. And I'm like, dang, like I didn't even know. Being a little kid, I didn't know all that. I didn't realize what was going on. But yeah, but she never could like prove it. So eventually, he started coming back around. And but I always had this weird feeling like anytime he would hug me, anytime he would kiss me on the forehead, things that should be innocent, if you have a good father and not a damn pervert as a father. But anytime he would do that, I would always feel weird. I would always feel this like, ugh, like, but I was like, maybe I just feel that way because I don't really know this nigga. Like, I'm really close to my dad. Like, he's been in and out of my life all my life. So maybe that's why I feel weird, but I always felt uncomfortable. Like, but I thought it was something wrong with me. But I always asked myself, was he the one who molested me? And then I would be like, nah, nah, like if he was I would pretty much gaslight myself out of thinking that. But then when I lived with him when I was 18, that's when it was revealed to me because, like I said, he was doing a bunch of perverted stuff and he said certain things where I'm just like, yeah, you're sick. Like there's something wrong with you. Like literally, I'm not trying to demonize him. I'm just being honest. So yeah, fast forward to when I finally moved out. Like he did something like super crazy, and I finally called my mom because my mom. The only reason I wasn't living with my mom is because her and my brothers they all moved to Florida, and I didn't want to move. Like I wanted to stay in my hometown, and so that's why I started living with my dad and his girlfriend. And I finally told my mom everything that was going on. And she asked me, I didn't even bring this up to her. But when I was telling her all the stuff he was doing, she asked me, Kyla, are you sure your dad wasn't the one who molested you? Mind you, I never talked to her about this. I never told her that I had this thought. And she never said that to me before. And when she said it, I was like, you know what's crazy? I've secretly asked myself that all throughout my life. And that's when we started talking and we started putting the pieces together. And I was telling her things that he did, and she was telling me things that I didn't remember from my childhood surrounding my molestation. And then I ended up having a dream, like that it was revealed to me that it was him and I wasn't just crazy. So, yeah, after I moved out, I started wilding out. I ain't gonna lie. When I moved out, I started wilding out. I was being promiscuous. I'm just be real. I would say 18 to 22. I was wilding out. I was, I was in the streets, and not like super crazy. I'm over exaggerating, but because I've been abstinent for 2.5 years, thinking about it is crazy to me. I'm like, woof, I cannot believe I was busting it open that much, but to the average person, it might not be like a crazy number. But yeah, I was being promiscuous, but it's not because I was just like, oh, I want to be promiscuous. Like, really, I was subconsciously using sex to get love. In like, consciously, I didn't think this, but subconsciously, I tied love to sex. I felt like if I had sex with a man and if I put it on him good enough, he will fall in love with me. Now, where did that belief come from? It came from me being molested by my father. Even though I didn't remember what happened when I was a child, it still affected me subconsciously. And that's something that I honestly never thought I would heal from. I never thought I would be able to heal from, my father wound and, what he did to me. But I did. And the way that I healed, there's three keys to healing from deep trauma. And the three keys to healing from deep trauma are acceptance, forgiveness, and changing your narrative. So let me first break down acceptance. What keeps a lot of people from healing is the fact that they keep dwelling on what happened. They keep replaying it in their head, which makes them literally relive it. Your subconscious mind doesn't know reality from fiction. Like whatever you feed your subconscious, that's going to come out. So a lot of times, sorry, I lost my train of thought as I was looking at my notes. A lot of times, and this is something that I used to do too. You keep replaying what happened to you, and it gets you upset to the point where you start crying. And literally, like, it's like a tape that keeps playing over and over and over. And as simple as it sounds, you have to just accept what's done is done. What's done is done. You constantly replaying the trauma in your head, that's not going to erase it. That's not going to get rid of it. Of course, allow yourself to grieve. If you haven't allowed yourself to grieve from your trauma and really let it out, cry, scream, whatever you need to let out, if you haven't allowed yourself to do that, that's the very first thing you need to do. When I started when me and my crazy ex broke up 2.5 years ago, and I really gave my life to God, and I started my, I guess, healing journey, I would meditate and I would literally go back to when I was a child and certain things happened, and tears would fall down my eyes. And it wasn't because I'm like, oh, woe is me, this happened to me, but it was really me giving my younger self empathy. Like, I would literally visualize myself back in that moment, whatever the trauma was. Visualize myself back in that moment as a beautiful, innocent little girl. And when I would watch it in my mind as I would meditate, silent tears would come down my face. I would just be sitting there with my eyes closed, but tears would be coming down because I was allowing myself to grieve what happened to me. Because a lot of times when traumatic things happen to you, a small part of you dies, a small piece of you dies. So you have to allow yourself to grieve whatever happened to you. But after that, after you've let it all out, let it go. What's done is done. It shouldn't have happened to you, but it did. And it's nothing you can do to change it. So just accept it. Also, you have to understand, hurt people. When somebody hurts you, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. And unfortunately, you were just the target, which brings me to my second key to healing from deep trauma, which is forgiveness. And like I said, understanding hurt people hurt people. What my father did to me, that wasn't a reflection of my worth. That was a reflection of his lack of self-love and of his demons. And part of what helped me forgive my father was knowing he did what he did to me because unfortunately something similar was done to him when he was a kid. Now that doesn't excuse it, but I understand it's generational curses. It's generational curses. It's very spiritual. Like I said, does that excuse him? Hell no. Nah. That's why I don't speak to that man. But even though I don't speak to him, I forgive him. I don't love my father, but I don't hate him either. If anything, I have empathy for him because, like I said, hurt people hurt people. He did what he did to me because that was done to him and he was sick and he never healed from that. And that's the reason why I'm able to forgive him also because I can't imagine how it feels to be that sick in the head mentally. I can't imagine. So, yeah, as crazy as it sounds, I actually empathize with that. So, yeah, forgiveness is a big thing, but also let's talk about self inflicted trauma that you experience due to your own poor decisions. Any trauma that's self inflicted, you have to forgive yourself for. You have to forgive yourself. A lot of times we can forgive others, but we have such a hard time forgiving ourselves. We're constantly secretly beating ourselves up in our heads for some mistake we made in the past or for putting ourselves in a certain predicament. But you have to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for what you did not know and give yourself grace. God doesn't want us just to forgive others. He wants us to forgive ourselves. And if God is forgiving, if God forgives us, why wouldn't we forgive ourselves? If God constantly emphasizes forgiveness, don't you think not forgiving yourself is just as bad as you not forgiving another person? It's probably even worse. Let me take a sip of my water, y'all. Hi, guys. I haven't said hi to anybody in the chat. Hi, guys. Ooh. Oh, another aspect of forgiveness I want to talk about is, let's say you experienced some type of trauma that wasn't self-inflicted and it wasn't caused by another person. Let's say you're driving and you lose control of your vehicle and you get into a really bad car accident and you end up in the hospital. And let's just say you have really serious injuries. That is a form of trauma. And who do you blame for that? A lot of times we will subconsciously blame God. God, why would you let this happen? God, why didn't you stop this from happening? I don't understand. I'm a good person. Why would you let something like this happen to me, God? And we secretly are bitter towards God or resentful towards God, mad at God, angry at God. Even though God doesn't need our forgiveness, we have to forgive God because forgiveness is not about the other person, or in this case, God isn't a person. So, but it's not about the other party. Really, forgiveness is letting go of resentment and bitterness. So, really, forgiving God is letting go of the resentment and bitterness you have towards Him for Him allowing a certain trauma to happen to you. A trauma that wasn't caused by another person, nor was it self inflicted. And I know that might be a little touchy for some people because they be like, what you mean forgive God? God don't need to be forgiven. Like I said, yeah, He doesn't. But in order for you to have a healthy relationship with God, yes, you do have to forgive Him, because how can you have a healthy relationship with somebody if you're bitter towards them or if you're resentful towards them? So yeah. And the last key to healing is changing your narrative. That's something that I had to do, because I ain't gonna lie. And I've experienced a lot of trauma throughout my life, but I wasn't about to go down my whole sob story. Like, this happened to me when I was 4, and then this happened to me when I was 6, and then this happened to me when I was 10, and then I was about to go down all this. So that's the only example that I use, y'all. But yeah, I used to constantly view myself as a victim. Woe is me. This happened to me. Here's my sob story. And I kind of used to wear it as a badge of honor. But then once I started healing, I was like, you know what? I don't like looking at myself like that. I don't like carrying myself like that. I don't like viewing myself like that. I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. Yeah, have I been through a lot? Yeah. But that was the past. I've healed from that. I'm no longer that person. That no longer has control over me. And instead of being like, whoa, woe is me. Why did this happen to me? Da, 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 I was like, you know what? Actually, even though certain things shouldn't have happened to me, I'm grateful that they did because they made me who I am. I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for all the trauma that I went through my life. And I know somebody might be triggered by me saying that, but here's the thing. If I didn't have any trauma, if I didn't have to overcome any adversity, I wouldn't even have a YouTube channel because I wouldn't have shit to talk about. Who wants to learn from somebody who hasn't been through anything? That's uninspiring. So it's like, if God chose me for this purpose and for this calling, I had to go through the things that I went through to prepare me. So instead of being like, oh, my dad molested me, blah, 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 woe is me, I'm like, you know what? I'm happy that I went through that. So now that I've healed from it, I can help other women or men, boys, whoever. I can help other people who have gone through it too, and they haven't healed. So you have to change your narrative and how you view your trauma. I am not a victim of my trauma. I was a victim, but now I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor and I'm victorious. I'm not a victim. I'm victorious. So it's like my trauma, it really doesn't affect me. And that's how you know you've healed. If your trauma doesn't negatively affect how you behave and how you move and how you think, that's how you know you've healed. But if your trauma is negatively affecting how you move and how you are, that's how you know you haven't healed. If you're able to talk about your trauma, and it's not something that's hard for you to talk about, that's how you know you've healed. If it's not hard for you to talk about your trauma, that's how you know you've healed. But if it's a struggle or you hold back, that means you haven't healed. And here's another misconception that I've heard before, and I'm like, I don't agree with that, but maybe just because I'm a crybaby. But I don't agree with people when they say, oh, well, if you get emotional or you cry talking about something that happened to you, that means you haven't healed. No, that's not true. That just means you're an empathetic person. Think about it this way: if you hear about somebody else's trauma and that brings you to tears, it makes you cry. That's no different than you reflecting on your own trauma and it making you emotional or making you cry. It just means you're an empathetic person. You're having empathy for yourself, your younger self, your previous self that went through the trauma. You're having empathy for your younger self. It's no different than, like I said, if you hear about somebody else's trauma and it makes you cry, it just means you're an empathetic person. And like I said, maybe I feel that way because I'm a crybaby. I cry probably, I cry at least 5 times a week, but it's not because I'm sad. It's really because I'm happy. It's really because I'm grateful. A lot of times it's tears of gratitude and joy. Probably like 10% of the time it's like tears of like sorrow, like Lord, where da, da, da. But most of the time, 90% of the time, it's positive tears. So yeah, and the thing is, I've heard people talk about their trauma and they didn't have no emotion. Like they might have even been laughing or whatever. And I know for a fact those people are not healed. And not to say, oh, if you laugh when you talk about your trauma or if you don't show emotion, that means you haven't healed. But it's not an indicator that you have healed either. Because, like I said, I was listening to an interview of somebody the other day talking about like trauma that they went through, and they were laughing. But I know for a fact this person hasn't healed. They even said it. But even if they didn't say it, if you look at how they are now and the decisions that they make and pretty much how they carry themselves, it's clear as day that that person isn't healed. So, yeah, if you're a crier like me, don't let people make you think if you cry, that means there's something wrong or you haven't healed. It's like, nah, I'm just an empathetic person. I feel like I said everything I wanted to say, but let me make sure. Give me a second. Let me take a sip of my water. Okay. I'm almost done, I promise, guys. Ooh. Oh, I actually did say everything I wanted to say. Wow. Okay. Well, if this message helped you, if it spoke to you in some way, please make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.